Imagine being stranded on a remote island, far from civilization, with no way out. Now, picture this. 32 men and just one woman, trapped together for 6 long years. 2 guns, 1 woman, and a series of unthinkable events that spiraled into chaos, betrayal, and bloodshed. This isn't a fictional tale. It's the chilling, true story of Anatahan Island, a tiny speck in the Pacific Ocean, 177 kilometers north of Saipan. What started as a tale of survival turned into a nightmare of human nature unleashed, leaving only 19 men and 1 woman standing by the end. So what happened on that desolate island? Let's dive into the dark and twisted saga of Anatahan. In 1939, driven by Japan's domestic policies, many Japanese citizens migrated to the islands their country had occupied, seeking work and a new life. Among them was Kyoko Higa, a 16-year-old girl from Okinawa, Japan. She embarked on a long journey to Saipan, hoping to reunite with her uncle and brother. Soon after arriving, her youthful beauty and charm landed her a job at a cafe. It wasn't long before she caught the eye of many admirers, including a young man from Okinawa named Shoichi Higa. After a period of courtship, Shoichi won her heart, and by the time Kyoko turned 18, they were married. With Japan's limited landmass, the government had pushed its people to settle and exploit Pacific Islands. Shoichi's job involved overseeing laborers on these territories, and the newlyweds enjoyed a blissful early marriage. But in 1944, Shoichi's work took a new turn. He was reassigned to Anatahan Island, a small, oval-shaped landmass about 9 kilometers long and 3.7 kilometers wide, covering nearly 32 square kilometers. A volcanic peak rose 790 meters above its lush terrain, dotted with coconut groves and remnants of plantations once thriving, but later ravaged by storms. Only about 20 native islanders remained, toiling under Shoichi's supervision when he arrived with Kyoko in tow. Their peaceful life was short-lived. As World War II neared its end, Japan faced crushing defeats across the Pacific. Islands once under Japanese control fell to the U.S. military, and Saipan was no exception. Worried for his sister still living nearby, Shoichi left Anatahan to check on her safety, promising to return. He never did. Left behind were Kyoko, a handful of native islanders, and Shoichi's boss, Kikuro, a Japanese man now isolated with her. Under the harsh circumstances, Kyoko and Kikuro grew close and began living as a couple. The fragile calm on Anatahan wouldn't last. American forces soon bombed the island, forcing Kyoko and Kikuro to flee into the dense jungle at its center. Miraculously, they survived, but the plantations were destroyed, daily supplies burned to ash, and all contact with the outside world severed. Anatahan became a true island prison. Fortunately, their 40 pigs and 20 chickens escaped the destruction, offering a lifeline for survival if carefully tended. For a brief moment, the two found a semblance of peace until fate intervened. On June 12, 1944, 4 Japanese fishing boats were attacked by U.S. forces near Anatahan. 3 sank immediately, and the 4th followed soon after. Of the survivors, 31 men, 10 naval soldiers, and 21 civilian sailors, all young, the youngest just 16, swam to the island's shores. Stranded with no boats to escape, they relied on wild bananas and coconuts to stave off hunger. At first, they believed Anatahan was deserted, a lonely refuge cut off from the world. Then, while foraging, they stumbled upon Kyoko and Kikuichiro. Having lived in their isolated bubble, the couple was overjoyed to see fellow Japanese faces. Beyond the native islanders, with whom communication was strained, they'd been alone. Welcoming the newcomers like long-lost kin, Kyoko and Kikuichiro shared food and tended to the men's wounds. Initially, the 31 survivors split into small groups across the island, but over time, they merged into a single community alongside the couple. With numbers swelling to 33, food and clothing became urgent concerns. The pigs and chickens were quickly consumed, leaving the group to fish, hunt crabs, and gather wild fruit. They fermented coconut wine and wove crude garments from bark as their old clothes disintegrated. For over a year, this makeshift society held together in relative harmony. Then, on August 15th, 1945, Japan surrendered, ending the war. Word reached Anatahan via American broadcasts, but the group dismissed it as propaganda, refusing to leave. The native islanders gradually departed, leaving only the 33 Japanese behind, completely cut off. At first, life remained stable, but the extreme gender imbalance, 32 men to 1 woman, began to fester. Kyoko, the sole woman, became an object of fixation for the young, restless men. To avert chaos, some suggested a symbolic wedding between Kyoko and Kikuchiro, witnessed by all, to establish her as taken. The couple agreed, held the ceremony, and withdrew to live apart. It worked temporarily. In August 1946, the wreckage of a U.S. bomber was discovered on the island, yielding parachutes for clothing, for damaged pistols, and 90 bullets. 2 of the guns were repaired by men with military know-how, forever altering the island's dynamics. Guns meant power, and power dictated everything. The 2 who fixed them, Yamamoto and Yamaguchi, declared themselves rulers, demanding the best for themselves, including Kyoko. Under threat, she and Kikuchiro had no choice but to comply. The first death came soon after. A man fell from a coconut tree, witnessed only by Yamamoto and Yamaguchi. His prior clash with them fueled suspicions of foul play. Fear spread among the unarmed. When another man made advances on Kyoko, Yamamoto shot him dead, intensifying the panic. Attention shifted from Kyoko to the guns, now symbols of life and death. Kikuichiro, fearing for his life, devised a plan. He told Yamamoto and Yamaguchi he'd relinquish Kyoko to them, earning their praise for his wisdom. But it was a trap. Kyoko saw what they couldn't. The 2 gunmen, once united, would turn on each other over her. She was right. Yamamoto and Yamaguchi soon clashed, and Yamaguchi emerged victorious, claiming both guns and Kyoko. His dominance alienated the others, and resentment brewed. Before long, Yamaguchi fell into the sea and drowned, or so the story went. Everyone knew the truth, but stayed silent. The guns passed to Nakagawa and Iwai, who repeated the cycle, forcing Kyoko to serve them. History echoed as Nakagawa and Iwai fought, with Iwai winning sole control. Wiser from past lessons, Iwai ruled cautiously for 2 years, until he, too, was assassinated. Over the next few years, death shrouded Anatahan. 3 more men died in accidents, bringing the toll to 9. Realizing the guns were the root of their misery, the survivors proposed a solution. Kyoko would choose a husband, and the guns would be thrown into the sea. It seemed logical. No weapons, no power struggles, no jealousy. They followed through, but the killings didn't stop. 4 more men died or vanished mysteriously. With no guns to blame, the group met again, concluding that desire for Kyoko, not the weapons, was the true poison. They resolved to eliminate her to restore peace. That night, a man who loved Kyoko warned her of the plan. Terrified, she fled into the jungle, surviving on instinct in the island's rugged 32-square-kilometer expanse. For 33 days, she hid until she spotted a U.S. warship offshore. Desperate, she climbed a tree, waved her clothing, and screamed for help. The Americans rescued her, ending her 6-year ordeal. She'd outlasted the nightmare, but 13 men hadn't. News of survivors spurred families to send over 200 letters, urging their loved ones to accept Japan's defeat and return home. Most on Anatahan dismissed them as an American trick, until one man recognized his wife's handwriting. Convinced at last, he persuaded the others to surrender. On June 26, 1951, the remaining 19 men left the island, processed at a U.S. base in Guam, and returned to Japan. Presumed dead, many found their wives remarried, including Shoichi Higa, Kyoko's first husband, now happily wed to another. The survivors' vague accounts of the 13 deaths sparked suspicion. Under pressure, the truth emerged. A brutal struggle over one woman had turned deadly. Kyoko became a media sensation in Japan, dubbed Queen of Anatahan and the woman with 32 faces. Some sympathized with her plight, but most condemned her, painting her as a seductress who'd fueled the carnage. Her story hit the stage in 1952, with Kyoko starring in a nationwide play for 2 years. In 1953, it became a film, The Truth About Anatahan, with her in the lead role. Fame faded, and she turned to dancing in Tokyo to survive. At 34, she remarried, opened a small shop, and lived quietly until her husband's death left her widowed again. In March 1974, Kyoko died of a brain tumor at around 50, closing a life marked by hardship. The Anatahan tragedy mirrors humanity's darkest impulses. Without laws, morality unraveled, and survival instincts reigned. Guns sparked the violence, but the real fuel was human desire, lust, power, and greed. Kyoko bore the blame, yet she was a victim, trapped by circumstance and coercion. From a criminal psychology perspective, Anatahan reveals how isolation and scarcity amplify base instincts. The guns were tools, not the cause. The true trigger lay in unchecked male entitlement and rivalry. Kyoko, powerless against armed aggressors, adapted to survive, not to manipulate. Condemning her ignores the systemic failure of the group to self-regulate. Her story isn't one of villainy, but of resilience amid chaos. A stark reminder that society's rules don't just protect the weak. They tether the beast within us all. What do you think? Does Kyoko deserve the scorn, or was she merely a scapegoat for human frailty?